Hello arty peoples and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein and I'm your host this evening. Now today's class is all about holiday card making. So I hope it's just going to be kind of a really loose and fun kind of show for you guys to experiment with. And I have a couple of different products and techniques to show you and I'm very excited. So before we jump into all of that, today our class code is down here in the corner. Yes, it's JL221, so JL221. So if you go to the website, jerrysartorama.com, and type in that code in the top search bar, the teacher's class cart should come up with all the different things. I hope I added all the things because we were doing these cards kind of in mass with, I did some, Amanda did some, Frida did some, and we just had fun with it, with the stuff that we had kind of in our offices or just lying around here as well. So hopefully I added everything to the cart. If I didn't, I will go back and double check, but everything should be in the teacher's cart, and that is the code to pull up that site. So let's jump into the biggest thing when doing holiday cards. We have different types of holiday or different cards that are blank for you guys to use. And I just wanted to show you a couple options that we have. There are so many options out there, but these are just a few of our favorites. First and foremost, we have our just straight standard card. This right here, let me open it up and actually show you one. It's just a blank white card that unfolds, if I can, with my hand. Everything is blank, all different sides. It also comes with blank envelopes that these fit into, which is really nice. Also about the same color. But these are actually watercolor paper. So the cool thing with the fact that this is watercolor paper, and I believe everything except for this is watercolor paper actually. Not entirely sure if that's meant for watercolors. I'll double check that. But the other ones that I'm going to be showing you is also watercolor paper. So this can pretty much take a beating when it comes to applying a mixed media variety of products. So you can use watercolors on these. You can also use gouache, the gel pens. I have acrylics. We've used inks, all different types of things that you can use to achieve many different effects. But this is just a tried and true little standard card. You can do it this direction. You can also do it this direction, you know, kind of a very versatile card shape. Now, this right here is essentially the exact same thing in a longer format, which is like I think they call it the slim size. It's written on here somewhere. And I'm gonna try and grab just one. So, it is a tall and skinny one, which is really fun. Again, it is a standard card where it opens and everything is nice and blank. It is that nice crisp white watercolor paper card, just watercolor paper words. And it, you know, again, takes all kinds of media. Then I have a couple different extras. So this right here is the Reflections watercolor postcards. Now I really love that it comes in this adorable little tin, so you can actually close it up and have a really nice little set that you can give to somebody if they're the watercolor artists. Hint, hint, cough, cough. Send these to your friends. But the cool thing is that, again, it's a blank watercolor piece of paper, but on the back side, you have those, actually, let's maybe go to the overheads where you can maybe see this. It's a little hard, it's a little faint, but if I pull it up here, there you go. You guys can see it has those little lines on the side, so you can put the address of who you're sending it to and then write them a little note over here, put your stamp over here, and then this side is completely blank, so you are ready to do some art on it. Now, if you are using these, the Reflections, we always do recommend getting the crystal seal bags. The reason why, and I did put these in the cart as well, they are just a clear little protector bag where your watercolor card can slide right in, and then it has a little peel and stick side right here where you can actually completely seal it. And then that way, your beautiful artwork it's still visible to where they can actually mail this off to your, recipient, but your beautiful artwork is now protected. The one thing we did actually realize, because we did test this for you guys, is that you have to make sure you put the stamp on the outside of the bag. So if you do mail these out, be sure to do that, especially if you're using the crystal seal bag. But these are a really fun little way of sending little cards. And at the end of this, honestly, you have a really nice little tin that I'm going to end up putting some artwork on the front and having a nice little storage tin. So, reusing! But this is a really fun little watercolor postcard. And then I have, the last one here is our photo frame cards, which are really cute. I did want to show you an option that has the black as well. So it is, again, it's a blank card. But the cool thing is that it has this little area for a photo to go in. So if you want to send your whole family a nice little holiday card that has a photo of your family, you guys can slide it in. Now it is slid in through the inside to where it doesn't just fall out if you slide this into a envelope, which again, these come with envelopes, so it's really nice. But you can also slide in some artwork, but if you want to see some examples, here is my little Lola. So you can absolutely decorate the outside of the frame and then pop in just a picture. I printed this off of just a printer here at work, so it's nothing special as far as the paper is concerned, but there's my little Lola beans. And then I have the ability to write in a card and then the envelope to stick this into. And then, while we're on these, because Frida made a card as well. So she didn't pop any photos in here as well, but you can still decorate this for, this is something that kind of reminds me of New Year's, like Frida had decorated, or you could maybe even use these for graduations. These cards are so versatile, but again, right now we are working on those holidays because it is the season, guys. Now, to kind of run through how we made these, I just wanted to show you quickly, and I'll show you a couple examples and how-tos a little bit later. But for mine, the one that I made with my Lola in there, I actually used this FW ink, which was the pearlescent in silver moss. Sorry, I had to read that again. So this is essentially just a liquid acrylic, and I took a brush and painted the little leaves on there, and then the little red dots for the berries are actually the Turner acrylic gouache. So I have a really nice shiny leaf motif, and then I have a really flat matte little berry, so it doesn't actually have that shininess to it, which is really fun. So I like that juxtaposition. And then down here I used, again, I used the red of the same berry color for that, the Turner acrylic gouache. I think I actually used the permanent red. So this is what I used for the red. And then for that little like drop shadow on my lettering, I used the FW in white. So this acrylic ink is very versatile, and even though I'm not 100% sure if this, sorry, I'm gonna just double check, is technically watercolor paper, but it can actually take quite a lot of media. Now, Frida, for this one where you did the Happy New Year, I know you used the calligraphy pens.
Yep.
Because I gave them to you to do. But for the actual gold, what did you use
I used
for
the
that?
gold Soho metallic watercolor.
That's what I thought. So
I used a paintbrush.
so
I used a dropper to get water on the paint, and then I used a paintbrush to transfer it to the back of the pen and let it drip off so it didn't sploosh on the paper.
yes, make sure you don't drip this onto your nib over top of your artwork. That would not be good. You might drip it on there. Yeah. But I'm guessing you use that gold color or the bronze?
The gold.
Gold. But yeah, this right here is watercolors, and there are the metallic watercolors for the Soho. And they give you such beautiful opaque metallic. I'm hoping this focus. There it is. Isn't that lovely? Especially on that black. It's just so pretty. I absolutely love that. So that is the Soho watercolors, and then you also use these on quite a few of the other ones. So
All of them.
oh, that's right, you used it for all of them. So she used the metallic watercolor pans for all the cards that she made. So I might as well show you those while we're at it. So, but this is the black photo frame cards, which are really, really fun. And I really love this, especially because like I always end up getting like a recent photo of my brother and all of his children and my sister-in-law, and you know, they have a family that's growing, and I love to see the photo of it every year. And then to have this little like cute little frame, you can frame this, the whole card, and then it's matted technically, and then it's also decorated and just super adorable. But it's a really nice way of getting a holiday card that has something a little bit more personal than just like, here's a picture of a snowman, although I love snowmen, so but it's really fun. And then so the other cards that you made, so like we said, we had the standard Strathmore watercolor cards, and then this is the one that you also made using these metallic watercolors. Again, I can see that you used the calligraphy pen, and then hopefully I can get this to where it would actually, oh, look at how lovely those metallics are. And then I'm guessing, is that the light green that you use for the leaves?
It's actually the hooker's green.
Ooh. They're just so similar, but the hooker's green does have a little bit more of that yellow tint to it.
And then for the berries, I used the pink and the red ochre.
So lovely. So those are the colors that she used for that. But again, it's all in that one little set, but quite lovely. Let's see what else we got. Now, granted, again, you can use anything to achieve these effects. And then you also did the tall and slim card. Yes.
Can you spotlight the calligraphy set one more time? Real quick?
Oh, yeah. So this is the Speedball calligraphy set. They do have a variety of different sets, but they come with a holder and then a multiple, I think there's 6 different nibs in the actual set. And I believe, which one did you use for?
The bottom one.
This. Okay, so you use the bottom one, which is a nice thin, but you can also still get a good variety in your handwriting. So, you know, a little bit thicker if you need to. And then, where's the
top
other
4
one?
nibs are better if you're doing something like italics.
Yeah.
Or unsealed hand.
Oh, for sure. But you can still get a decent thickness with those, the same nib. It just depends on the pressure that you lay down. Now, I would show you guys calligraphy, but that is not my forte. And I've tried to get Frida on the show, but she said no. I don't blame her.
Who would moderate YouTube?
That's the question, honestly. But this is the other one that she did, because, you know, everyone celebrates different holidays, whether it's, you know, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. And then I do know you said something about the number of candles.
So a traditional Hanukkah menorah has 9 candles.
Yes.
8 for one of each night of Hanukkah and 1 in the middle to light all of the other candles. This is based on the original temple menorah, which only has 7 candles.
Okay, okay. So just wanted to clarify that in case anybody was wondering. But, so you use the watercolors on here as well as a little accurate pen. So, you know, you can get really fine details with the outside of your drawing, and then with these pens, which are waterproof. So as soon as you write with these on your, sorry, I'm trying to make sure there's not a glare. As soon as you write with these on the paper, they are waterproof, and then you can go back over top with the metallics, or you can go the other way around, where you do the watercolor and then draw on top with these, which is really fun. So, but that's the other colors that she used as well. And I believe that's it for the cards that you made, right? Yes. So, Amanda and Frida are my calligraphy ladies, and they have such beautiful handwriting. So, hence why I forced them to make me some cards. But I know Frida definitely used the Soho metallics, but let's talk about the ones that Amanda made me, which are adorable and very different and still awesome in their own right. So, first of all, we have this adorable little Christmas tree. So I love how washy this is. Which watercolors were you using for this?
I used the Lucas set.
The Lucas. Okay, so the Lucas Aquarel. Is it the ones in the pans?
Yeah,
or the
I have
tubes?
the 48 set.
48 set. Okay. And then I'm guessing this is the oxide of chromium.
It's not.
No?
It's the Verona Green Earth.
Oh man, it's so pretty and it granulates so
Yes.
well. So this like technique where you actually did like the little triangles and then you got the water in there and let it bloom. It's so lovely. But again, it's just like a quick little like watercolor doodle, and then you you know, can make quite a few of these if you have them all lined up on your table, and then send them off to your family, you know. And then I have a cute little one that says Happy Holidays with the lights. And I'm guessing you also still use the Lucas on this as well. Yeah. So different colors for the little light bulbs, and it looks like it's almost like one big brush stroke and then a couple little brush strokes for the bottom and then a squiggly line.
Yes.
So much fun. And so easy to do. And then we have a Happy Holidays, which is adorable as well. Again, the little Christmas tree where you just pretty much are drawing triangles and making brush marks to do the little, oh, what's the part of the tree? Branches. Words. And then you used a Tombow marker for this, right?
No.
Right? Or is it? No?
I used the Mimic
used-
Swirl brush.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Frida had used a Tombow marker as well. I used a Tombow marker on mine, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. But yeah, no, they work very similarly. So with a brush, you can actually get a nice thick downstroke and then a thinner upstroke, and then get that really lovely calligraphy effect. But you can use a brush or even a marker. But these cards take all of the media, which is great. And then last but not least, we have a very cute little watercolor stripey, which I adore. And this, again, would be so easy to do. And then you write, if you want to, Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, whatever you guys celebrate, Crazy Kwanzaa, you know, or even, what's the other one? I know there's so many holidays around this time, Box Day, Japanese New Year, whatever you guys are celebrating, you guys can write all kinds of different messages on here. But those are the ones that Amanda made, which are absolutely adorable, and I love them so much. But again, it's just taking the same cards and doing different techniques with a big wash of watercolor and a marker, or I'm sorry, that's not a marker at the bottom, that is still the watercolors with the brush just really loaded up, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then I do have the ones that I made, and then I'm gonna actually show you guys how to do these because I know how they were done very specifically. But before I jump into those, do we have any questions?
No, but I did want to point out the card that Amanda made with the lights.
This one.
Those are also great with kids for family. If you
Yes.
do their little fingerprints or
Yeah.
thumbprints.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable. Yeah, and you guys can use, even though these are watercolor cards, you can use acrylics on these. As long as you get it kind of on the thinner side, if you have a non-toxic acrylic, and then paint your kids' fingerprints, and then let them like dot it around, and then just do a squiggly line between all the little fingerprints. And then you got little Christmas lights that are actually their fingerprints. That's adorable. I love it. And I hope to get a card like that from your kids, Frida. But you know what? It is, again, we are still technically in fall. So I wanted to represent my fall season, guys. Even though I know there's all kinds of holidays, but happy fall, y'all. Now, this one, this is the Tombow marker. So where you can see, I use the brush side of the marker. And I'm sorry, I actually don't have one on me up here. I forgot to grab one. But it's the brush side of the marker that I had used to get that downstroke, and then I used it very thinly to pull to get those the side strokes to get the nice calligraphy kind of look. But my handwriting myself is not great, and I know that, so I made it look quirky using my strengths, you know. But this right here is where I actually took leaves, actual leaves, and I painted them and I pressed them down. So I wanted to show you guys how to do that. Now there are a couple things with this that you do need to keep in mind. So I brought in a leaf, this is a real leaf, guys. from my neighborhood that honestly, it's 'tis the season for leaves. They're literally everywhere. So while my other half is cleaning up the yard and cursing the leaves, I'm collecting them and being like, I'm gonna make art. And then I just have a big pile of leaves inside the house too. He loves it. But the big thing to know with when you are creating this kind of technique with the leaves, what you really, really need is something that has that flexibility where they're not crunchy yet. So you can grab the ones off the ground. This is actually one that I grabbed off the ground, so it's still kind of flexible. The main reason why you don't want to get something that's crunchy like this is that when you paint it and you go to lay it down and you press it down, you're going to get all these little bits that are going to be stuck in your artwork. So when I press this down, it's just going to have that flexibility and it's not a problem. But just don't get the ones that are real crunchy, because then you'll make a mess like this. Excuse me.
I regretted that for you as soon as I heard the crunch.
It's fine, it's fine. I'm allowed to make a mess. They love me.
It's in the name of art.
Exactly, exactly. So what I actually used on this one was the Turner acrylic gouache. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with the Turner acrylic gouache is that you don't want to go super thick because it is kind of a brittle material. You can also use acrylics on these if you want something a little bit more flexible as well. But because I'm going so thin, it doesn't really have that big of a problem going on cards. So Turner acrylic gouache tends to have, when you flex it, it can crack on you. But for the most part, because we're going so thin, yeah, the paper kind of really absorbs it and you really don't have that problem. But just make sure that when you're doing this, if you do use the Turner acrylic gouache, go nice and thin. But I wanted to show you, and I dropped my other leaves. I have other leaves, of course. If I decided to, let's put it the right way up, and it helps if I actually open my palette. Let's pick a color, any color. Ladies?
Turquoise.
Turquoise. Now, do we do turquoise regular or turquoise pearlescent? Because, of course, I grabbed that.
Always shiny.
Pearlescent. Always.
I don't even know why I asked.
There's one not, so.
All right, now this, by the way, fun fact, is the same color that I painted my glasses because my glasses had broke and they put my lens in a freebie pair of glasses and they were horrible, so I decided to paint them this color, which I painted them like 10 years ago, and this is held up with, of course, I also use glitter on top because.
Is there a reason you're using acrylic gouache over plain acrylic?
The reason why I like, and I'm specifically using the Turner acrylic gouache, not just any old acrylic gouache, because the problem being is that gouache in its traditional standard form is an opaque watercolor, so it will re-wet. The reason why I want to use the acrylic gouache instead of an actual gouache is because of the way that watercolor and gouache kind of oddly beads up on the leaf. And that's why I'm going with the acrylic gouache and not gouache. But for this, I just happened to grab the acrylic gouache because I really like the flat matte finish when they dry, because it doesn't have that glossy effect to my card at all. But it also, they have so many different colors, like a pearlescent teal. We have options. But again, this is also a very concentrated acrylic gouache. So you don't need a whole lot on your palette. And I'm going to actually, it kind of depends on the leaf. If you look at it and it has more texture on the back as opposed to the front, I usually paint the back. Now, do we have another question?
So you prefer the acrylic gouache over acrylic for the
flat matte finish. Yes, that's specifically why.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Now, when you do this technique, also make sure to leave the stems on your leaf, just so you have something to hold the leaf with. Ask me how I know that, because I made the mistake of literally popping off the leaf right here on the end of the stem, and then I'm sitting there going like this, trying not to like hold it, and then flipping it over and slamming it down. That was not fun, and I got paint all over my hands, which is not the end of the world, but also not something I would suggest. But let's get this painted real quick. Now I'm just gonna make this real fast. And again, hold it by the stem. That's also another thing I do, is while I'm making an art mess, I usually sing what I'm doing. Why? I don't know. It's part of my process.
How fast does it dry on the leaf?
I honestly did this with smaller leaves. I just decided to do a bigger leaf because I wanted you guys to really be able to see it. But it didn't dry too fast on the leaf. I just want to make sure I'm going fast because acrylic gouache does tend to dry relatively quickly because it is still like an acrylic. But I also didn't want it to... Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Wow. Excuse me. This is why I can't walk and chew gum. So, I have the leaf pressed on there with just my hands, right? Now, if I were trying to make sure that I was a little bit less messy, I would make sure to keep the back of the leaf a little bit cleaner. Also, I would probably use a brayer on a leaf this size instead of my hand. But the cool thing is that if I wanted to, I could take a little bit of the white while I'm at it, or other colors, because you don't have to use just specifically white. I'm gonna take that, and before I pull it up, I'm just gonna paint around the edges. Maybe actually, you know what, I'm gonna go with light blue. Why not? Add a little bit of that turquoise back in. Now I am still using my hand to kind of hold that leaf down. But the name of the game is just make a big sloppy mess, because it's fun. Alright, almost done, almost done. But this technique does work great for acrylics. Going back to that acrylic question, sorry. I am trying to brain and art and talk at the same time. I'm slowly catching up there. But yeah, no, this really does work great with acrylics as a technique. But there's my cute little leaf that is also metallic and turquoise. So you really can get quite a lot of detail in there just because of the veins from the leaf. But if you do that outer painting on top of it before you do pick it up, you get that nice change between them, and then you can layer them as well. But keep in mind as you do paint them, and I did bring these back in just so you guys could see it. These are the little leaves that I used on this card. You can't really continue to use the leaves after they've dried with the acrylics on them just because they get that crispy again. So if you do this technique, make sure that you do all of the cards in one day or have backup leaves. Like if you grab the leaf from your great aunt's farm that lives in a different state, just be aware that you're going to need to use those leaves all in one go. Or if you have, like me, I used this from my neighbor's tree because he decided to blow all of his leaves into the street. So we have a lot of leaves that are all like this, so if I need to make more cards later on, I have a very vast supply. But that's the leaf technique, which is really fun and really great for especially fall. If you guys want to make little turkeys out of these, or even flames, because if you look at it like this, it also looks like fire, which is fun. But I've also seen this technique being done on a black background, which is really, really cool, because then you can also layer them and get a good variety of different kind of variations of the leaves on top of one another. Yes?
Those maple leaves also look great as poinsettias if you do them in red.
Ooh, that would be a great idea. This is the problem with using these cards, is that you always get like, oh, that would be awesome. And then you go down a rabbit hole of making a million cards, which is what I love about this. But that was the leaf technique that I used, and then I, again, just used a Tombow, or you can use any kind of pens that you have lying around. I also have gel pens that I'm going to get into a little bit later. Those are really fun. You can use a variety of things on here. But even though this, again, is a watercolor card, I also need to preface this with, you guys do need to keep in mind that this is going to accept water-based media, not oil-based media. So I wouldn't put any oil paints on here. I also probably wouldn't go with any of the media, like drawing media, like specifically charcoal or graphite, not graphite, pastels. Those are the ones that are going to smudge in transit. So something that is going to dry and be fixed. Yes.
What about the water-soluble versions? Will they become dry after they...
I hesitate with the water-soluble pastels because it depends on the pastel. Some of them do kind of get fixed in once you get them wet. So if they have a tendency to get stuck into the paper once they have been activated with water, then you're probably okay. If they have any kind, like once they fully dry, if they have any movement to that pigment, you're probably not going to want to use it, just because in transit, it's going to get knocked around. Like our poor postmen and post ladies, post peoples have so many cards and things, especially around this time of the year, to transport from A to B. So they're not going to be precious with your handmade card words. But just be aware that it is going to go through quite a lot of sorting systems and mail bins and trucks and things. So you might think this is the most amazing thing that you've ever done. They won't realize that. So just keep that in mind. But that is the leaf technique that I wanted to show you guys.
What about watercolor pencils?
Watercolor pencils, yes, absolutely. I actually almost used watercolor pencils on these, but I forgot about them and just moved on with my day. So yes, watercolored pencils or even colored pencils are a great option. You can absolutely use them. Now, let's go, well, since I have the Turner acrylic gouache, I wanted to go with this. Now, this is, again, the Turner acrylic gouache in the background. I actually did use the cobalt blue hue. So that's that crazy blue color on the background here. And then ignore my little mess up. I did that on purpose, guys. Because I have a plan, I swear. The actual little baubles, is that the term for these? Little baubles? Those are actually the gel pens, which is really fun. Now, a couple things to just know about gel pens. And I'm sorry, there's a glare. This is the 120 color set. We do have a set of 12 in the glitter, because these are the ones that I actually used were just the glitter ones. And let me actually, I know that there are so many of them, so I just specifically grabbed the ones that I used were on this side of the thing. But there are so many colors in here, so you have a lot of options. As far as colors are concerned, they have a difference in opacity. Some of them have glitter, some of them have that pearlescent kind of shine to them. I actually ended up using this silver one for not only the middle of these, but I also ended up using a variety of blues, which is, it's funny, I was actually just talking about this. I did this one and I was like, man, that's going to be my favorite. It's so pretty, because I did a little snowflake motif in there. And then I did that one in more of like a turquoisey color. And then I was like, ooh, but that color. And then I started doing this one and I was like, oh, nope, that one's my favorite. So this one has a variety of all the 3 different blues. So I actually went from like a darker blue down to the lighter blue on the side, which is why you're getting that color variation in there. Now, this one, we might want to go to the side camera so you guys can really see what I'm doing here. Let me make sure that there's nothing in the way. And that I'm actually in camera, because I do have my silver pen and I did not finish this on purpose so I could show you guys. So the Turner, because it has that flat matte finish, and there you go. Ooh, you can really see it there. How pretty is that? So you can really see the 3 different colors there. The Turner, because it is that flat matte finish, is also really, really nice to draw on with pens. So I'm just using my silver pen. And what I did to get these shapes is I actually had something round like the bottom of my bottle here, and I stuck that down there and I just traced it. I actually didn't use this one. I used something that was a little bit smaller, but that's how I get my circles. So I did 3 circles and then I just kind of changed the shape, and I did that with pencil. And the reason why I did it with pencil is because it still shows up really nicely on this surface, which I know I have a pencil around here somewhere. Yes. I am going to mess this up on purpose again so you guys can see. So if I do a little scribble here, you guys can still see it just barely on the edge there, right? So if I take this pen, even though it's a gel pen, I can actually just get quite a good coverage on this flat matte surface. So
Can you remind us what color blue that is in the background there?
that is the cobalt blue hue. Let me try and pop that in. Hopefully that's legible. So I'm just going in, and I actually did the glitter first, the glittery pens, and I'm going around them with the silver. The reason why I'm doing that direction is because the glitter pens have a transparency to them, which is lovely, and that's why they don't really appear that streaky, because I didn't actually work on getting such a crazy coverage on these the Christmas baubles. So I just actually took the pen and went me, and I wasn't trying to get them completely crazily filled in. I was just trying to get the glitter on there, because the blue of the card kind of interacts with the color that's inside of this, not the glitter but the color, and then it gives it that lovely kind of a shimmer to it. But if you were to put the same glitter pens on a white card, they would look completely different, which is important to know. So if I wanted a blue and a red and a green, I would probably paint those shapes with the Turner Acrylic Gouache first with the colors that I wanted, and then go over them with the transparent gel pens just to get that kind of a shimmer in. But then I'd go over it with this really opaque silver, because that's where I can kind of fix my drawings a little bit. But as you can see, I messed it up, right? And I did that on purpose because, let me get this leaf off of here. I'm gonna take a little bit of, let me kind of scooch this over so you guys can see. I'm gonna take the same blue, which is also why this is a flat color. I did not do a gradient or anything crazy in there, just in case I messed my drawing up, right? Because if I take this blue, same blue that I used in the background, let me get my brush clean. And again, this is a very concentrated acrylic gouache. But if I take that and I put that over that pencil, let me actually rotate this so I can get a little bit of a better view. Right? Load my brush up with a good amount of pigment. Wow. I can erase out my mistakes. I actually, down here, accidentally touched the card with a glitter hand. And I can erase that out too. Now, there is a color difference right now, but as soon as that dries, it's going to appear like I did not do anything else to it other than draw that little Christmas bauble on there. So it's a really fun way, as long as you do one solid color in the background, it's a really fun way of being able to do little doodles on there with the gel pens and be able to fix your mistakes if you're just not a very precise doodler, which is okay. But this is a really fun way of getting all kinds of different techniques. So if you wanted to do something for Hanukkah, you know, you can do the Star of David in the middle, you know, all kinds of different things that you could do to specifically for whatever it is that you're celebrating. So super fun. So that was that technique. And then, how are we doing on time, by the way?
About 20 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. I have a couple more things to show you guys, which are fun. Let me kind of shove things out of the way. This right here It's kind of a throwback to a technique that I showed you guys at the beginning of the year. Now, ignore my my smudge over here. I can cover that up. Wow, I got paint all over my hands. I can cover this smudge up with a little bit of white acrylic paint if I need to, or I can try and lift that back off because that is watercolor. I just wasn't being very precious with it. But this is multiple layers of, let me actually grab this over here, the Soho watercolors. So this right here has a ton of different colors. This is usually how I have it sitting because here are my swatches, because I actually made a little swatch card, and that's actually the lid is also the mixing well area. So let me get that off of there. So these are my swatches for all the different colors that are in here. So usually I have them kind of right next to me when I'm doing this. So what I did for this technique is I started off by, where is my, ooh, I've got a messy table over here, sorry. Started off with tape. I like to use a little 1/4-inch tape to get the really nice borders on my cards. I end up lining up the edge of the tape with the edge of the card, and it makes it super easy to keep that nice little framed kind of a look to it. But if I want something a little bit thicker, I go with a 1/2 inch. But the 1/4-inch, especially for the cards this size, are my jam. I love them so much, which is also how I got the border on this as well. So I taped it off, painted it in, and then peeled off the tape. But when you do that, keep in mind, wherever you overlap, I'm trying to figure out how to actually, maybe we go to that side camera again so I can really show you this. Because it's hard to see unless I show it to you very, very up close. And this is, especially when you're doing any kind of a taping on your watercolor. There we go. So right here, you see where my two tapes are intersecting. The one that's on top is going to sit on top of that layer of tape. And there's going to be a little bit, and I mean just the tiniest amount of gap in there. And that's where my watercolor is going to bleed, which is very frustrating when you do this beautiful watercolor and then you go to peel off the tape and you got schmutz on the edge. It's very, very frustrating. So what I do is I take my fingernail and I actually kind of run it along that edge just to give it that little crease in there. And when I do that, that is what really helps me keep my watercolors from bleeding into all of those edges. Let me make sure that it's on all of them. Yes. So what you're also seeing on here is masking fluid. And that's exactly how I got all the different layers of the little snowflakes and snow on here. But hopefully while we're at this angle, you guys might be able to see that shimmer. Whoa. Because this Soho palette that I'm using has, where's my swatches? It has these little pearlescent shimmer colors. And so when I take these, there's a purple one and a green one, so they kind of have that interference kind of a look to them. When I take those and I mix them into the blues that I have, as well as the purples, they give that just lovely kind of a shimmer that interacts with the actual pigment that I'm mixing it into for just such a pretty, like wintry kind of effect. But as you can see, I didn't actually take all the masking fluid off of this section right here, which I'm so sorry. Katie actually asked me this before I started, and I do have a rubber cement pickup. It's just over there. So if someone can go grab that for me, right. It's actually down there in the corner. So while she's grabbing that, I'm going to start on this layer. So what I did was use a masking pen. So this is masking fluid in a squeezy applicator bottle that has this, oh, thank you, Katie. So this is the rubber cement pickup, and I'll show you how to pick this up off of that once we lay down our first layer of the watercolor here. But this masking pen it's got the masking fluid in it, and then it comes with a normal nib on there, and then it usually comes with a weird little like empty bottle as well. And this empty bottle has this additional little nib inside of it, which is really cool. So I ended up switching and putting that in there. So this is, I believe it's a 0.8 or 0.5 millimeter nib. So it gives you these really, really crazy fine details like my little snowflakes that I did here. So I've taped this off and I have put the little dots of masking fluid on there. Now wherever I've put the masking fluid will remain pure white, as well as wherever I've put the tape. So if I go back over here, yes, we have questions.
How did you get your lines so straight on your snowflakes?
Steady hands. Lots and lots of practice. But here's the cool thing. Like if you actually look over here, it's really not that straight. It's a little bit of a wonky, blobby mess, but no one's really gonna be like, oh no, your snowflake isn't really all that perfect. Because I mean, it's the overall effect. When you have them all together and you're looking at the whole thing, you don't realize that that's just a wonky mess. And even if it is, it's okay. They're not perfect snowflakes. I make wonky snowflakes, and that's okay. But the more you draw little tiny snowflakes with a masking pen, the better you get. Which is why this one looks fantastic. It's my last one that I did. But yeah, it's a hot mess. So what I'm gonna do though, is I'm gonna take a couple, actually let me put this over here so you guys can see. I'm gonna take a little bit of this blue, which is number 89 in case anybody's wondering, and I'm just going to lay it down and make, again, I'm just gonna make a big old mess. It does not matter. I'm just gonna do a big old watercolor wash, which is why I probably should have a bigger brush than what I'm currently using.
Do you want a bigger brush?
Yes, please. Please, can I have a bigger brush? I had a lot of things to put up here, and I forgot a bigger brush. Yes, you have a question?
If your mask pen gets clogged.
I knew that was gonna be a question.
Yeah.
Yes. So if your masking pen gets clogged, that's why whenever you actually get the extra little nib, it has a needle in it. Now keep track of your needle, because as soon as you're finished using the masking pen, put that back in. That will also keep the tube of this clear, as well as if it gets kind of clogged. The only way that I've ever been able to do this is where I just like literally take it in and out, and I try to like knock that little blobby of dried masking fluid out of that needle. And if I need to, I will actually take this whole nib off. Ooh, yes, bigger brushes, sorry. I'm gonna take this while she's handing it to me. If I need to, if it's really, really, really crazy clogged, I will take this whole nib off, make sure that I seal my bottle with probably just take the whole thing off, and then switch my caps back out so I have it sealed to where my masking fluid stays in here and stays wet. But then I will let this dry out completely. Then I go back in with either a thicker needle, which I have a sewing needle that I like to use, or a chopstick, like a little throwaway chopstick, and then I go back in this direction and I kind of just swirl it around, and then when you pull it out, the whole thing comes out like one giant booger. And there's no other way of, yep, it's just one giant booger. Because it all just wants to stick to itself. That's kind of the nature of the masking fluid. So that's the only way I've figured out how to get it kind of clear. All right, so I'm gonna keep this first layer nice and light. And the reason why is because as I put more and more layers on here, I get darker. And then once this dries, and actually before I let this fully dry, I'm gonna put this purpley pink back in. This is number 24. So by the way, if anybody's wondering what I'm saying about 24, the bottom of these pans have numbers on the bottom of them. So I'm using, the blue is number 89 and the purple that I'm about to put down is number 24? Yes, 24. So when you mix those together, it's quite lovely. But again, I'm keeping it nice and light. So I will show you why, because we are visual peoples, as soon as I get this down, so I can stop trying to art and talk at the same time. Okay, layer down. The reason why I'm making it nice and light and leaving it there, letting it dry, I'm gonna go back in once it's fully cured and dry, my layer of watercolor, and then I'm gonna put masking fluid back on without removing this original layer. So I'm gonna let this dry, keep all my masking fluid that's already on there, leave it be. And then I'm going to put in another layer of masking fluid. So these are the first couple layers of my masking fluid that I had put on after my watercolor had dried. So you get those variations in the little snow dots and your snowflakes. So this was, I think, these two both might be, because that's my original white layer. These two were both after I did the first initial wash. So you can go anywhere from like 3 washes to as many as your heart desires to get the effect that you need. But as you keep going, you keep layering on more and more and more watercolor to get it darker. And yes, whatever you put on the areas that are not going to be painted in with masking fluid is going to interact with the previous layer. So that's why I have my purples here. This is kind of a blue-green. There's some blue up here, maybe a touch of green up here. But I consistently put those colors in those spots to where that green didn't interact with that purpley red and make mud, because the green and red on the opposite side of the color wheel, and then they would make that icky kind of brown color. So I have the blue kind of going in between them, and I made sure to not mix them up. So that way my colors stay nice and clean. So I'm gonna set this off to the side and let it dry. While we're doing that, I'm going to get more paint on my hands. Use this, this is a rubber cement pickup, which is essentially just a big chunk of rubber. So it has a little bit of a flexibility to it. Now the reason why I absolutely adore rubber cement pickups for the masking fluid is because the masking fluid just wants to stick to this. So I don't have to worry about how I'm gonna get this off of here. It just kind of sticks. So, and again, remember, this is fully dry. So I'm not doing this on wet watercolor, because if I didn't let my paper fully dry before I did this, I would be destroying my paper. I would get, you know when like you rub wet paper, it kind of pills up and gets messed up? That's what this would do, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you really let it dry. Don't jump the gun. And also, it's just, you're going to be moving your pigments around, and it's not going to look very pretty, especially if you are like me and you already took the tape off, which was not a good call. I would probably leave the tape on until after all the masking fluid is removed. But that's how you, this is how you remove the masking fluid, which is so satisfying. And before I officially call it, I usually run my hand over top of it because I can still feel some masking fluid. It's hard to tell where it is sometimes, especially when you do it in layers like this. I think I got it all.
Hey, Emmy.
Yes.
Would this technique work with thinned out acrylic paint?
It would, actually. Yeah. Now, when you put water into acrylic, if you're putting it on canvas, do not exceed more than 30%, because you think of it like glue. Acrylic has that bond that if you put too much water in, you're kind of thinning out your glue and you're making it weaker, right? If you put more than 30% of water into your acrylics and you put it on canvas, it has that flexibility, so the bond is not very strong, and you're going to have problems with it being archival and really sticking onto your canvas and having a good bond with the underlying layer, as well as the overlying layer is going to have an issue too, because it might also flake off over time. And it might take a while to get to that level, but it's one of those archivability things that is one that I would not recommend breaking. Now, there is a reason why you can break it, especially if we're working on paper. When you're working on an absorbent surface like paper, you can absolutely break that rule. The reason why is because that paper slurps up all of that acrylic, and it actually forms a bond with the acrylic, whereas like the canvas is gessoed and it doesn't form that bond like a paper would. So if you are doing this on paper, absolutely thin down your acrylics, go crazy. You can do as thin of layers as you need to. But again, I would stick with paper for that method. But the masking fluid will absolutely resist the acrylic. And then once it cures, you can remove it just like this. That would be very cool to use. So that's the official. This was the first layer. That's why it's pure white. And then you can see the additional layers and why they get darker. But it gives you that like kind of a foreground, background kind of push-pull throughout the card. So that was that technique. I will go back in with the last little bit of the card if we have some time. But that I would let this dry, do more layers of the masking fluid, or the masking pen with the masking fluid, and then let that dry, and then do another layer of watercolor and keep going back and forth. Which is kind of how I did that with one of the very first shows that I did, and I was doing leaf kind of shapes, which was really fun. Now the last card I wanted to show you guys is my favorite, but I'm biased, but I can't help it. So I didn't do a whole lot with this one. This one I actually just used two things. I used the Reflections cards, and I used the Accurate waterproof technical pen to make a cartoon version of my dog. I mean, clearly, can't you tell? It's my dog. Sorry, I can't help it. It just makes me so happy. Mary Borkmas. And then she's wearing a cute little Santa hat. So all I did was I ended up on a scrap piece of paper. I took a potato shape because she's a potato. And then I started doodling in her little snoot and then her eyeballs that go on opposite sides of her head. And they also point in different directions. And her little tooth that likes to hang out, but her tongue also likes to hang out. And I did the doodle, and I refined my doodle into essentially this. And then I took my light tablet and I put that drawing underneath this card, and I made my doodle permanent with the waterproof technical pens. Now the reason why I did that is because I'm going to make 4 of these. My brother has 4 children. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this uncolored, and I'm going to actually, here I have it over here somewhere. I made them a watercolor dot card. And this is still actually, I was trying to get this to dry before, because what I did was I took the crystal seal bag. I did my little bloops for my watercolors, because this is going in the mail. I didn't want them to be sitting up tall. But I took a crystal seal bag, and I actually flattened it back out. I just squished it down. And it's not fully dry yet, but it will be soon. And then once it's fully dry, I'm going to actually cut them into strips. And then I'm going to put this into a crystal seal bag. I probably will seal this separate from this because I just don't want that paint to stick to my card. Or even if it just happens to be a rainy day when this gets delivered, I don't want there to be any interaction with this on here. Because, you know, this would ruin this. But I'm going to seal this in a crystal seal bag. I'm going to put them together, and then I'm going to put them in another crystal seal bag, and then I'm going to mail them to my nieces and nephew for them to color in for me. Which is going to be so much fun, and I cannot wait to see them. But you can absolutely do that, and make sure to send off an adorable little watercolor dot card for your kids. Now, the only thing I thought about this after I did this, I probably would put this on Yupo paper instead of just a scrap piece of paper that I had lying around. I actually think this is watercolor paper, to be honest. And then I would separate them a little bit further because they're kids. Do you have a question?
You could even cut out little palette shapes.
I could cut out little palette shapes out of Yupo paper and then do the little dots on there. That would be cute. And then make sure to put that in there. The reason why I did a strip, though, is because I wanted to be able to have it in there with it and then still be able to see the Mary Borkmas, because you can't put it on this side because that's where the address is going. So you can't cover up the address. It's going to have to be sitting up front. But I know my nieces and nephew are gonna get these, and it's gonna be amazing. I'm kind of hoping for a rainbow pug, not gonna lie. But it's gonna be so much fun. And again, the really cool thing with these pens, and here, let me actually do this while I'm here and can show you. Let me just grab, again, this is just watercolor paper. And I'm gonna take, actually, let me do this so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Yes.
If you have a laser printer, you can also print onto the postcards if
Yes,
you're
you
not
can.
skilled like Emmy and can't draw the same picture 4 times in a row.
Listen, I'm using a
And
light
then-
table. I'm tracing, I drew this technically, but I am tracing it from card to card. That's how I'm getting them perfect every time, because you can't have a difference when you have 4 children. They have to have the same thing, because otherwise they're going to be fighting over the one that the pug that has the hat or the one that has the glasses and all that. Anyway, yes.
Important to note, it must be a laser printer. If you use
Yes.
an inkjet printer,
It will
ink
bleed.
will smear.
Yes. So yes, you can print on these cards. You can send them through a printer, but like Frida just said, make sure that it's a laser printer, not an inkjet printer. Otherwise, the ink from an inkjet printer is going to bleed once you get them wet. But if you wanted to, actually, you could just print off an image, a whole image on here, which is really cool. But let me actually use the biggest nib that I have. So I wanted to show you guys this because I've been using these for so long. It's just like regular knowledge for me to know how quickly these dry, but somebody was very surprised by this last time, and I wanted to show it again. Because I forgot that this was a thing, right? So this is the waterproof technical pen. This is watercolor paper. I'm just gonna do a quick little scribble. There's a Christmas tree, right? Yeah. Here's water on a brush. It's already waterproof. Like, it's not bleeding at all. It's already done. And there's my Christmas tree. Right? And then, of course, you can't have it without a little blob of yellow on top. Right? So I just wanted to make sure that you guys see how fast these pens dry and how fast you can actually do watercolor on top of them, because they are literally, sorry, let's make sure this is on camera. They're not bleeding at all. It's sopping wet still, and there is no movement of these pens with water. And you saw how fast I put this down and started using watercolor on top. So it is 100% waterproof, which I love, and they interact, or they dry so quickly. So you can really knock out your artwork real fast with these. But it was just, I wanted to make sure I showed you guys. Ignore the fact that I did a weird chunk on the bottom there. Yes.
We had a couple of questions
Yeah.
about sealing them and what you need to do when you need to seal them, all of the things.
I had a feeling you guys were going to ask about sealing. So when it comes to watercolor, there is a way to technically varnish your watercolors, and that is a whole process. You can use a spray varnish on them. There is another way of doing that, but I would actually, if you are interested in doing varnish on your watercolors, especially for like cards that are going out and kind of expose the elements, if you're not using a crystal seal bag completely. There is a show that I did on varnishing. I think it was the acrylics and others, because I had oil varnishing as one show, and then I had acrylics and other water-based media as another show. I went over how to fully varnish a watercolor in that show, and that's a little bit more in depth. But we have another question.
Are the accurate waterproof technical pens archival quality?
Yes. They do not fade over time. That's acid-free life. Yeah, they are absolutely archival. Love those pens so much. That's why it's just so like second knowledge, or like just
Second nature.
Second nature, second knowledge. second nature for me to just use these, and like I know all these things and I just forget that you guys don't know that, and it's just, these are wonderful pens. But we have another question.
Yes. We were wondering if you could use alcohol inks over those pens, or if they would smear.
Oh, I haven't tried alcohol over these. That is a good question. I'm gonna have to test that, guys. So I always go back through all of the comments on these shows and make sure to answer all those questions and things. So whoever asked that, I will go back through and tag you in a kind of a result. I'll reply to your question. So I'll make sure to find that out. I just have to test it. I don't know. Oh, and the other thing with the acrylics and the Turner acrylic gouache, again, you can spray varnish these if you want to, but they're pretty solid. You don't actually have to. The only time you really need to like spray varnish or really fix anything down, before I forget the end of that question, is when your media will move on you. So like, that's why I was saying try to avoid the charcoal or the drawing media that tends to move, like pastels. That's just a whole kit and caboodle of issues that you're gonna have. You can spray varnish them and get them to officially go through the mail. It's just that they probably might not survive.
They'll get that stamp on them.
Yeah, they always get, that's the thing, is that especially with postcards and things like that, you're going to get a stamp that runs across, and it's, sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's like black light, but usually you can also see like fingerprints and dirt and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things that, I mean, most of these cards are going to go into an envelope and they'll be protected that way, so it'll be fine, but, especially with the watercolors and the gouache, if you want to make sure that it has that added layer of protection, you can always stick them in a crystal seal bag. Again, make sure that the stamp goes on the outside of the bag. Otherwise, they'll send it back to you. But if you wanted to, that's the best way to really kind of seal it without having to fully varnish, which is a whole thing. So I hope I answered that question. But that was all of our holiday cards, guys. How are we doing on time? Are we officially, is it?
7 minutes over here.
All right, we didn't go too far over. But I had a ton of fun with these. I hope you guys do too. They're a really fun way to send goofy little, just a holiday spirit to your friends, your family, whoever needs a little extra goofy pug in your life. Or even if you do a very serious piece of artwork on the watercolor cards, it's just a really fun way of sending your art out to the world with just have fun and play with it, because these are goofy little cards that are just, I like to look at these as like experimentation and ways of figuring out how things interact with each other, like remove the tape after you remove all of the masking fluid, and I will take this knowledge and then use that in my final official artwork that I use, for job and life and commissions and all that. So I hope you guys have fun with these. I hope you guys make all the different cards and everything for your family and friends. And if you guys want to post them and show what you made, make sure to post that to our Facebook page, which is Jerry's Live. Wow, I almost forgot what I was talking about. Yes, Jerry's Live group. It's on Facebook. If you want to become part of that group, you absolutely can. All you have to do is make sure you answer that one security question. Otherwise, you are deemed a robot, and I'm not allowed to have robots in there. Sorry. But just make sure you answer that question, and then we'll let you in. And there's a group of, it's over 6,000 people, all of which are artists, artist lovers, people who create and then post things for inspiration, as well as asking questions about, hey, I did this and I'm not sure what I need to do to fix this portion of my painting or drawing or whatever it is that I use. And it's just a community of all of us kind of supporting each other and just posting our artwork for inspiration and just to share it, which is really fun. But if you also want to make sure you reach out to me specifically without having to post it to the group, you can do that as well. I have my Facebook group my Facebook page, which is Emmy, host of Jerry's Live, and you can direct message me that way. But that was holiday cards, guys. I hope you had fun, and make sure to join me next week because we have Andrew Cook back on. He's from Sennelier, and it's going to be so much fun. We're going to be going over a lot of, I believe, oils stuff, which is going to be wonderful. So I'm very excited, and it's also going to be our last show of the season. So I am very honored to have had this year with you guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye!